The Ritual of Shadows. In a remote village in Rajasthan, India, there exists an ancient tale that elders whisper only in hushed tones, warning the curious and the reckless. It's the story of a forbidden ritual known as Kaala Vidya, the black knowledge. It's not a practice taught or written down. Instead, it's passed through dreams and whispers to those desperate enough to listen. Rahul was a skeptic, a city dweller visiting his ancestral village to settle a property dispute after his father's passing. The village Bapri was small, suffocatingly quiet, and buried under a shroud of superstition. Rahul dismissed the warnings from the villagers about the Kaala Vidya and the shadowy figure they called the Chayasadak, the shadow seeker. One night, after a heated argument with his uncle over inheritance, Rahul stormed into the village square. It was deserted save for an old beggar sitting cross-legged near a withered tree. His eyes were pale and unseeing, but his voice was unsettlingly clear when he spoke. "Anger makes men weak. Desperation makes them dangerous," the beggar said. Rahul stopped in his tracks, unnerved. "What are you talking about?" The beggar chuckled, revealing jagged teeth. "You seek control, power. The shadow can grant it. But be warned, once you take its help, you are never free." Rahul scoffed, but the words stuck in his mind. That night his dreams were filled with whispers, incomprehensible but hypnotic. When he awoke, a strange compulsion gripped him, a need to find the shadow seeker. He asked around the village discreetly, receiving only fearful glances or outright silence. Finally, a drunkard at the edge of the village muttered, "You'll find him near the black banyan tree, but you'll regret it." Rahul ignored the warning and ventured there at twilight. The tree was enormous, its gnarled branches resembling skeletal arms. The air grew colder as he approached, and shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally across the ground. A figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked. Faceless, its very presence oppressive. The shadow seeker didn't speak but gestured for Rahul to sit. Despite his terror, Rahul obeyed. The seeker began drawing symbols in the dirt, his hands moving unnaturally fast. As if controlled by something unseen, he pointed at Rahul and then at the symbols, indicating he should place his hand in the center. "This is ridiculous," Rahul said, his voice trembling. But a voice not his own whispered in his mind, "Do it." Rahul placed his hand on the cold earth. Instantly, a searing pain shot through him and the world around him darkened. He could no longer see the seeker, but he felt an overwhelming presence. Then the whispers began. They promised power, wealth, vengeance, all he ever desired. In return, the shadow asked only one thing, a fragment of his soul. When Rahul awoke, he was back in his family home, drenched in sweat. But something had changed. His uncle, who had vehemently opposed him, suddenly agreed to hand over the property. Strangers treated him with reverence, almost fear. His business calls back in the city bore unprecedented success. At first, Rahul reveled in his newfound fortune. But the whispers never left. They grew louder, demanding more, urging him to perform tasks he didn't understand. Burn a particular piece of cloth, bury a small mirror, avoid crossing his shadow at night. He dismissed these as hallucinations. But when he ignored them, strange things happened. One evening, Rahul walked past a mirror and froze. His reflection wasn't his own. It was gaunt, hollow-eyed, with blackened veins crawling across its face. The reflection whispered, "You're not keeping your promises." Terrified, Rahul smashed the mirror, but the whispers grew louder. His dreams turned into nightmares, showing him glimpses of a shadowy figure dragging him into darkness. His health deteriorated rapidly, and despite his newfound wealth, he felt empty, drained. Desperate, Rahul returned to the black banyan tree, demanding answers. The seeker appeared again, silent as before. Rahul begged, "How do I undo this?" "I didn't know what I was agreeing to." The seeker pointed to the ground where the symbols had reappeared. But this time they were different, more intricate, more sinister. Rahul understood the unspoken message. The only way out was to pass the curse to someone else. Over the next few days, Rahul wrestled with his conscience. He didn't want to damn anyone, but the whispers grew unbearable. Finally, he made a decision. He invited his estranged cousin, a man he despised, to the village, under the pretense of reconciliation. That night Rahul led him to the banyan tree, claiming it was a place of ancestral importance. The shadow seeker was waiting. Rahul watched in silence as his cousin was drawn into the ritual. The whispers subsided. The oppressive weight lifted from Rahul's shoulders. For the first time in months he felt free, but freedom was an illusion. Days later, Rahul's cousin was found dead in his home, his face frozen in a mask of terror. And then the whispers returned. This time they weren't just in Rahul's mind, they echoed around him. Louder, more malicious. Shadows moved unnaturally in his presence, creeping closer, darker. Rahul finally understood the truth. The shadow doesn't release its servants. It merely toys with them, dragging them deeper into its grasp. His wealth meant nothing now. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even look at his own reflection, without seeing the creeping darkness consuming him. The last anyone saw of Rahul, he was wandering toward the black banyan tree at dusk, murmuring incoherently. Locals swear they heard him screaming that night, but no body was ever found. The only trace of him was a single handprint, burned into the earth beneath. The tree, its fingers stretched, unnaturally long, as though clawing for freedom. To this day, villagers avoid the tree, and the name Kaala Vidya is spoken only in whispers. But sometimes travelers claim to hear faint, disjointed voices near the tree at night begging for release. The shadow always listens, waiting for its next victim.